It's the Montessori Power Hour. I'm David Hargis.
And I'm Aubrey Hargis. And on today's show, we are talking about sorting some itty bitty, teeny tiny things. Apparently, we have some kind of bean joke.
Whoa.
And we're going to ask a question: why is my child doing this weird thing, which might have something to do with the ears and the nose? But first,
But first,
but first,
it is election season.
It is.
Have you noticed?
I have noticed.
You can't
actually.
escape it. I mean, here in the U.S. at least. I mean, every country around the world has its own rhythm, but certainly here in the U.S., it's taking up a lot of the space in the news, right?
Yes.
And tonight is a big night. It's the debate, the second debate, the first one with candidate Harris or Vice President Harris.
Here in the United States?
Here in the U.S., of course. Yeah, that's right. And so I'm wondering about your memories. I know. Let's go back at the time machine. What do you remember about debates? Because I was trying to think through, like, okay, because we have kids and, we've been trying to keep them politically aware for years. But, when I really think about it, the first election I actually have, like, really engaged memories of is 1992, which was Clinton, Bush Senior, and Perot, and I was 17 in high school, and so it's age appropriate, right? Because I was in the developmentally third plane. That's when you really get interested in the bigger world and your place in it. And I think that any memories I have before then are more like the Saturday Night Live parodies. So I have like lots of memories of Dana Carvey as George Bush and John Lovitz as Michael Dukakis and Phil Hartman as Ronald Reagan. But I don't have a lot of actual memories of those people actually like existing in the world. So it's like I'm like Homer Simpson in that classic episode, like where he'll never read the book, but he might watch the Saturday Night Live parody. We're doomed, So, what do you have? Like, how was it for you? Did you have like a lot of memories growing up with politics and things, or?
Yeah, what I remember about politics as a kid is, of course, I remember being with my family watching debates on TV. I don't know that I remember a particular debate as standing out as like most significant over all others, but my parents were definitely interested in politics,
Sure.
And debated each other as well. They didn't necessarily share the same views, like I think a lot of families out there where two parents might have slightly different or maybe sometimes completely different political views.
That's right.
I know that might have been true in your family as well, right?
Actually, what's interesting, you're saying this. My father's passed on, but for the entirety of my life, I never knew who he voted for. He kept it secret. And so I think, yes, for sure, I would guess my mother and my father were not politically aligned in all ways, but I always knew where my mother stood politically, and I never knew where my father. He was just very, let the world come as it is, and we'll go on.
Yeah. Well, so who you vote for was always talked about as being a very personal experience in my family as well. But I know for certain that my parents definitely sometimes voted for completely different people, which always, I think it was really good for me as a kid to see my parents who both love each other, who have a great relationship, just have different perspectives on politics and just be comfortable stating their own positions on things, and also comfortable in front of me. I don't remember a whole lot of like dragged out long arguments between my parents in terms of the debate. They were always kind of like very calm, like, well, yep, this is what I believe, and your father believes something different, and he can tell you all about that.
I really love him anyway.
Never said that. But I thought that was a really healthy perspective, and I think that we've tried to continue on that in our own family, recognizing that what you believe and who you vote for might not necessarily be what your neighbor believes, but that you should be compassionate about different points of view and respect them,
That's right.
even if you think that they're wrong.
That's right. So,
And so so you asked me what are my memories. A huge amount of my memories are about that.
Yeah.
And I also have school memories.
Oh, okay.
I remember coloring, I don't know, a donkey and an elephant in school.
Yeah.
Represents two different political parties.
Yeah.
And I remember teachers having us do like mock debate type of stuff, but not about actual politics, about like which ice cream flavor is the best,
Totally.
or
That's right.
like things that are really kid friendly, that they may have strong opinions on themselves, even if they don't understand like what's happening with China or Russia or the US or Mexico. Like nothing that's like specifically too complicated about geography, but like things that they might personally feel are relevant. And I remember doing a lot of that in school, and I thought that was kind of a fun, engaging way to get kids involved in being able to take a position on something, even if it's something that's kind of silly.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess as you're saying that, because what I realized as I was reflecting this morning was like, I'm really interested in politics, and I remember always being interested in politics because I'm interested also in things like history and government and so forth. But yeah, really, those early memories are just like they're very like they come and go, or they're like I said, they're like I remember the Saturday Night Live parodies more than I remember the actual candidates themselves.
Right.
And in the 80s when I was a little guy. And I guess for littles, I guess it's the same, right? Like it just occurs to me like kids aren't necessarily totally interested in politics, and maybe it's sort of meaningless to them. But what you're saying there really kind of also brings in this idea of like they actually might know what is really important. Like I think maybe as adults we get really focused on the horse race aspect of it and sort of the short term, like what's going to happen. But kids are, I guess that's what Maria kind of saw in children, right? There was this kind of something special in them. And maybe that's why she had such a high hope for the peace education aspect of Montessori. Like if you could help kids to retain that.
Retain what?
That sense of peace and a focus on things that actually matter rather than just kind of temporal, like momentary material things, but like bigger, more important substantive things. And if you could help them retain that as they aged, maybe you could make the world better.
Yeah, well, I think that is why we're here. But also, I know that a lot of parents are going to be watching the debate here in the U.S., and they might be wondering, should my child watch with me or not?
Yeah.
We're not here to tell you whether you should or not. And I think that it kind of depends on the child.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I guess it goes to my experiences where like what I've said many times about the cup, like the child is like a cup that can hold so much, and if you pour too much in, it'll just overflow, and it just kind of washes away. And that's kind of what it was for me. I think when I think about my own formative experiences, I took in as much as I could, and the rest sort of faded away. And when I got older, I started to develop political identity.
Yeah.
And so, but the exposure to it as a part of like what makes life, as an American, specifically in a democratic society, it's important to be engaged. And to take seriously the franchise and the engagement with society, just as your parents taught you. And so even though I don't remember any of the specifics, for sure like for you and I both, like the tradition of being engaged and taking seriously our role in society came through.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there is something on my mind, though. I don't know if you want to get into it. You probably don't. But I am thinking in terms of debates that we tend to hold up our political leaders as being like these beautiful examples of human beings, the cream of the crop of our political world, people that we look up to. And I think that sometimes it can be confusing when you watch a debate, or at least if you're a child and you're watching a debate, and you see these people engaging in behaviors that aren't necessarily things that we want our children to be modeling, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, that's part of that is just due to the nature of the debate, not calling out any particular candidate. I think it's kind of the field of debate is rife with it, right? But yeah, name calling or sneering, or even even candidates that are you believe are on the right side, like they learn how to do these certain kind of techniques.
Yeah, our politics can kind of bring out
just
the worst in us in some instances, right?
Yes.
And that can be...
Yeah. So I think my personal point of view is that that we should, if we notice these things happening, that it's okay and maybe even preferable to call it out.
Yeah.
And say, hey, that sounded kind of mean, or I wouldn't want someone talking to me
I
like
want to see
that,
Trump
or...
and Harris at the peace table tonight.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be. So we have a comment here. It says, I am conflicted with the idea of retaining, quote unquote, retaining peace, as I don't believe there's peace to retain. I'm more interested in the idea of creating the peace and fairness we currently lack by developing a sense of justice, social justice, through understanding the world. I don't know if this is Montessori aligned at all, as I haven't read that far yet.
Oh, I love that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jessica, it is Montessori aligned. That is like you are right on in Montessori. Social justice has always been part of Maria Montessori's overall vision. She was instrumental in advocating for the rights of the child back during the time that the United Nations was coming together and being created. And if you do decide to dig deeper into your Montessori journey, then you should definitely read some of her original work, because she wrote a lot about peace and justice. She was
a social justice warrior in her time.
She was, and a feminist.
A staunch feminist, a champion of the underclass, the working class, and poor. Yeah. And I don't know that she had she grew up in a time of great turmoil comparatively, right? I mean, she was born in the late 19th century. It's a time of immense upheaval in terms of the economic systems and the technological systems of the world, and then lived through two devastating world wars, or perhaps as some sort of conceive of it as one like ongoing world war from World War I to World War II that completely transformed. She saw her own people who were Montessorians in Germany suffer the worst consequences of Nazism. I know we have kids watching, so I'll kind of keep the language a little looser, but I think you can get the sense. And had to flee. Mussolini attempted to co-opt her in the 20s. She fled. She was a political prisoner in a sense, and then actually fled to India and spent many years of her life essentially in exile during World War II in India.
And she was very famous for saying, all politics can do is keep us out of war, right?
That's right. So
she believed that children were the instigators of peace, like education is where peace should be taught.
Yeah, and I think there's a sense that sometimes when we talk about peace, we feel like, especially now, I hear this also, I think there's a sense that like people who focus on peace are soft. But, some of our greatest peace advocates were not soft at all. They were meek in the sense of blessed are the meek, which I think we take that word wrong. We've talked about this before. The sense of being meek is not to be submissive. It's to be so firm in your belief that nothing can shake you. You don't have to shout it from the rooftop because you embody it so greatly. So when we say blessed are the meek, that is actually the true understanding, and that's how I would say like the sense of peace. It is a force. that you would embody and push in a peaceful way? I don't know. You're giving me the skeptical look.
Well, no, I'm not skeptical. I was kind of reflecting about Maria Montessori was such an advocate for nonviolence, and also like such a force in the world.
It's a kind of contradiction,
yeah,
right?
But
I think that's where we get crosswise. Like I think, and I've been thinking a lot.
Because she was not in any way soft.
No, she pushed boundaries.
Kind of a prickly person, who always
imperious in a way,
and always was never afraid to state her opinion. She was highly opinionated and unwavering in her beliefs.
Yeah, and a troublemaker in some degree.
For sure. Well, speaking of troublemakers,
now I wonder if this has ever happened to her. Did you know that sometimes? No, I've got a new graphic for you. So you ready for this?
Okay.
Did you know that sometimes kids do weird things?
Sometimes kids do weird things.
You like our new graphic here? You like it?
You put a spaceship on.
There's an alien in there. He's going, hey, buddy.
Okay. Well, children have a different perspective.
As though they were aliens.
Children have a different perspective on the whole world. And we have to be honest, sometimes they do things that we would never consider doing as an adult. And one of those things does have to do with the ears and the nose. And to us, it might seem downright weird.
Yeah.
It is putting things into their noses and ears. And we can just pause to ask each other why. Why do they do that?
Yeah. Well, because kids are curious. They're in a sensorial, this would be my guess. I don't know the answer. They're in a really sensitive period for sensorial learning. The nose and the ears are holes, and you're curious, like what it feels like in there, and would something fit? I think it just is natural. Like, why do kids eat grass? And like, they're curious. They want to take in the sensorial world, and they don't necessarily have common sense in the way an adult does. So that would be my guess. I don't know.
All right. So curiosity about the world. Children are also curious about their bodies in particular.
Oh, sure.
And so they want to explore all the parts of their bodies. And they do this right from birth, right? They come out and the babies, what do? Immediately they start reaching for their mouths and for their toes, and they start pulling, when they have the motor skill development, they start grasping and pulling at their bodies. And then as they get to be age 2, like they really are exploring their whole bodies, including the ears and the noses, which are very mysterious.
They are.
Because what's up there? We know stuff comes out, but only sometimes, not all the time. And it's just like, where does it go? It is a hole, right? And the same with ears too. Like they can be kind of texturally strange, right? Mucus is sticky, and so is earwax. And to us as adults, we're like, okay, this is gross. Just teach them how to blow their nose into some tissue and move on. But the fact is, children do want to explore. Yes. And so I have a suggestion. Okay, and it looks like this. Check this out. Montessori materials are actually designed for children to explore, including holes. And so when we take these out, I know this is a fun connection. There are these very interesting holes. I don't know if you have any kind of materials at home, toys at home that have little holes. And have you noticed that children love to try and stick things in and see if they fit? Well, that is what a lot of the Montessori materials are designed to do, is to encourage children to explore in those ways. And so I am proposing that works like these, where your children are actually encouraged to explore the size,
and this is the knob cylinder set,
This is one of the knob cylinder blocks. But by giving our children materials like that, maybe not necessarily exactly the knob cylinder blocks if you don't have a set of that at home, but for sure there are going to be some kind of little mysterious holes around your house where things fit in, and your child has probably already found some of them.
That's right. This is why we cover all those outlets.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly what we cover. So why do children stick things in their ears and noses? For the same reason that they're interested in those power cords and outlets that we don't want them to play with either.
That's right.
And sometimes this does, often children end up at their pediatrician's office to, parents find, like, my kid's ear is hurting.
That's right.
And then the doctor pulls out something very strange. And it's usually like a piece of food, like some corn or maybe some beans.
Now, do you have a memory of going to the doctor to...
No, I actually don't.
I do. So I don't... So apparently the story goes, I was little.
No.
I was about 16. No. I was a little guy. And apparently I stunk. So that's right. It was stinking. And my mother and father were like, why does he smell me? And they bathed me and they just didn't. And so eventually they took me to the doctor and they were like, he kind of has this weird smell. And then guess what they found? Sponges up my nose.
Sponges?
That's right.
What?
Little pieces of sponge. Apparently I had shoved sponges up my nose. They were up into my sinuses. He reached in and he pulled them out and they were rancid. And I stopped smelling after that.
Oh my goodness.
So I remember them coming out. I don't remember the going in part, but
oh my gosh.
And I know Lola Pop, I think, is that right? Yeah. Says, I remember doing it as a child, even though I knew better.
Yes.
Put a bead in my nose because I was curious. I didn't get stuck. So I did it again. So, okay. Had to go to the hospital. Yep.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. So this is super, super common. And so what does it mean for us as Montessorians? We know that children have an incredible sensitive period for teeny tiny things.
Yes.
And that this sensitive period actually starts before they have the cognitive ability and the self-control to not put things in their ears and stuff, right?
So we want to focus them on something healthy.
So what do we do? Right. So you might, I bring this up because this actually is a very appropriate.
Classic.
Yeah, the holes are pretty big. They're not going to get this in their nose or in their ear. It's pretty safe. You could check for chokeability. That's another thing to check for when you've got young ones. But that's also a reason that this material was designed for ages 2.5 and up. Yeah. Usually 3, maybe even 3 and up, because some of the pieces can get pretty teeny tiny.
And to kind of draw into what we talked about last week, it's a good example of control of error, right? Yes. So if it's in the right hole, it's flush.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. Great example of control of error. Yeah. So what to do? We've got some tiny things. We know that children are in a sensitive period for itty bitty things, and that starts much earlier than they have the self-control to not put things in their in their mouths or in their noses or in their ears. What's a Montessori parent to do? Well, in a Montessori classroom in the primary years, you will see tons of activities with teeny tiny things, right? And that's on purpose because we know that there is that sensitive period and we want to nurture it. Yeah. And hopefully by the time children are like 2.5, 3 years old, most of them have a little bit more self-control. We can explain to them, like, this doesn't go in the mouth. This stays in the hands. Now, of course, they're probably going to sometimes test the boundaries with us. They still have to be supervised, obviously. I remember at age 3, our oldest was still like trying to eat chalk, and they're still like children, even though they're 3. Doesn't mean that they're not still in an oral stage or.
This is Jessica has a comment. She says it feels to me as if my son is pushing boundaries to experiment when he does this. How loud can I get? How hard can I bite this, etc. Right, it's exactly what you're saying, right?
And part of that is also expressing independence in the world. So as Montessorians, we know that very little children need the experience of exploring itty bitty things. They need that experience. They need to explore, holes and putting things in and taking them out. We want to give them these experiences, but also we want to make sure that they are safe. And we don't want to end up in the pediatrician's office for things stuck in their noses if we can help it.
A smelly boy.
Okay. I had forgotten that you put things up your nose. I do not have a memory of that. Mother, you can tell me later if I ever did that one. But I don't have a memory of it.
Okay.
So I think that, when your children are very little in the Montessori classroom, we would say that if there's lots of kids in the toddler class in Montessori, just don't put dried beans on the shelf, because I think it's just kind of impossible to wholly, entirely supervise those really little ones that don't have a lot of self-control.
Yep.
When you've got a classroom to manage of kids that are doing all kinds of things that you might need to get up and go handle.
Yep.
Pottying, like there's all kinds of, something breaks, someone drops something, someone cries in a toddler classroom, anything can happen. But that said, at home, I think that a lot of parents are able to give a lot more supervision, and so that it is actually easier to allow your child to explore teeny tiny things. There's some things obviously you can't necessarily control for, like if you've got a plate of peas and your child is feeding themselves some peas, if it's food, like it's really hard to control whether that goes in the eyes, in the nose, or not the eyes. Maybe the eyes too, I don't know. It's hard to control for that, right? But when it comes to something that is like hard and tiny, like the Montessori beads that you use for math,
golden beads
or like little dried beans, it's important to keep those things away from the little toddlers that might get into danger with them. All right, try to ingest them or put them in their nose or their ears. So you want to kind of keep that stuff up while they're little, if possible. Or you can choose to give them those kinds of experiences, but you have to sit next to them and be supervising while they're interacting with the material. And we see a lot of that in our community. So you don't have to say, okay, this material is only designed for ages 3 and up, so that's only appropriate for that age child. Maybe I have an older sibling who's doing it, but I'm not going to allow the baby, to play with it. No, you can take the pieces that are large enough or appropriate for your baby to play with and let them explore, as long as you are supervising.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Actually, and so a perfect example of this is this week, actually, in our Bounty, which is our theme of the month. We are doing a activity we're calling dry bean soup. Oh, let me turn it
Dry bean soup.
Dry bean soup. Here we go. Yeah, so we're doing dry bean soup. It's one of the activities for this week in Bounty. So if you're in one of our programs, you'll find this for this week's cards. It's in the book. And if you're not in one of our programs, just hang around and learn a little bit about how to do a sorting activity.
Actually, right here in week 2 of Bounty, we've got the book Growing Vegetable Soup. We'll talk about later on as well.
That's right.
And the activity Dry Bean Soup. And I've been seeing our members doing this activity. It's a really fun one. Very easy.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of folks having fun with it, so we wanted to talk about it. And I think this kind of is a good segue, because you're talking about how do you supervise and how do you give a lesson of this sort at different ages. And
That's
so,
right.
because a lot of our members and a lot of folks out there will have, just as we did, they'll have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and the 6-year-old is at a really different level of readiness to do this activity than the 2 or 3-year-old.
Right.
And so how do you manage that in a house? Would you
That's
put
right.
this on a shelf?
Yeah.
How would you supervise it? Would you put it high?
Yeah.
What does it look like? That kind of thing. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about our dry bean soup.
Okay.
lesson.
All right. So we're going to do a top down
Yeah.
to find the lesson. Great. Turn on our. Okay. So here we are in Bounty, and here is the dry bean soup. Okay. So We have this actually listed under practical life.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a sensory and, grounded activity as well. And it also really speaks to math.
Definitely.
So we easily could have labeled it math. Remember that all of the activities in our thematic packs, all of the lessons really kind of intermix within all these different subject areas. And that's part of the beauty of Montessori. So you can have a practical life activity that also is a math.
Yeah, that's the
lesson.
best. I mean, we don't talk about it so much here, but that is actually one of the reasons that I am such a big fan of the Montessori method, is it lends itself to interdisciplinary learning, which is always superior to other sort of very hyper-specific to a domain kinds of learning. Like now I'm going to learn math, and now I'm going to learn this. And when we put them together, it allows the child to have creative problem solving, and it replicates real-world thinking.
Yes.
And this is an example of that.
Perfect. Okay, so this also comes with it a lab sheet that is in the back of this packet. Let me see if I can put my fingers on it. So much fun stuff in here. Oh,
yeah, so somebody using
there's
a
the
different
Root
lab
of
sheet.
Life, another lab sheet.
There we go.
Okay, yeah, here it is. So it's very, very simple.
Yep.
So you would write the type of bean here and the number here. So this would really help it to become a math activity
For sure.
Especially for older kids.
Yeah, because you're gonna, as we're gonna see, you're gonna have a bag of bean soup, or you're gonna have a mixture of beans, and you're gonna sort and count them.
So let's go ahead and do this activity, or we'll show them how it is done so that they can do this at home. It is a great example of an activity that shows that you don't necessarily need to spend a whole lot of money in order to give a great lesson. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an awesome lesson that uses very, very common materials.
Yeah, also in practical life, we tend to think that in order to do practical life at home with cute little tray setups, that we need to go to a dollar store and go buy a whole bunch of little plastic things or toys or whatever for children to sort or or experience. And the truth is that you can do pretty much all of these practical life activities just in your kitchen, just with the things that you have on hand. And so here we're going to assume that you have a bag of bean soup, of dried beans.
Or you've got a couple different bags of dry beans that you could mix.
That's right. You got some beans at home. So what do I need? You want to tell me what I need for this activity? And I will get out our supplies.
Well, you're going to need a medium-sized bowl.
All right. Medium-sized bowl. I got that.
We have some good comments in the coming at us. We'll handle those in just a few minutes, guys.
Okay. What else?
We need a cup of mixed medium to large beans.
Okay, and here I have my bowl and the beans all in one.
We need a pair of tweezers or small tongs.
Okay.
And we need several cups or a sorting tray with enough spots to hold each type of bean.
Okay, and this time I have tweezers.
Yep.
All right, and I have a nice little tray I'm going to use for this. And I just have these little sauce cups. I really love little sauce cups, and they're actually super affordable. You can find them at little restaurant supply stores.
These are homemade.
These are homemade by our oldest in his pottery class.
He was practicing his pottery.
But before we started learning pottery, my gosh, I would collect these.
So we have some. We're going to show some
them.
photos in a minute too from our community, and you can see a variety of ways that people are sorting.
Yeah,
okay, so now, so you've got it set up, right? And you're gonna just, kind of as so here in the guide we have our picture. We have it set on the other side, but it's good. So what you're going to do is you're going to introduce each of the types of beans. So, for example, you say this is a lentil, or this is a pinto bean, this is a black bean.
This is a California Corona bean. It's enormous. We'll talk about the texture, feel it in your hand, feel how big it is, feel how big that is.
I mean, it's really cool even here I'm a grown up.
And this,
it's amazing, such a giant bean.
This is a little Mayan red bean, and we can see the size difference there. Look how tiny it is compared to it. And so and then I have a garbanzo bean here, a little chickpea, and I have a little pinto bean.
Yep.
And I've got these little beans, little brown beans, and I'm trying to remember the name of them, but I'd have to go and look it up don't remember the names of them. But they're cute, right?
They are cute.
Yeah.
And
so we've got one, what do I notice? Of like one giant bean.
Yeah, one really big bean. They're all kind of brown or red, except for this one is sort of white or cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So already we can
They're
kind
different
of,
shapes.
maybe
Some are like
we're starting to kind of
more
visually sort.
ovular.
I kind of see like these are kind of brown and this one is red and this is white.
This one's more round. This one's smallest and this one's largest. So
these are teeny and these are medium and that's large. So
this is also when you would introduce some vocabulary, in this case the word legume. You would say they're all in the legume family, and you could talk about what that means. And anything else, if depending on the age of your child, this could be a really interesting, because we've been eating beans for a long time as a people on this planet, and you could have them think about like what kinds of things we use beans in, and how they grow. Or if you're using other activities like in the packet, you can even start to dissect and look inside them.
That's right.
And find the parts. And if you've got a little guy, then you can also just do really beautiful, fun things like, see, I wonder why is this one so tiny and this one's so big, and yet they're both legumes. It could be just really interesting. So just a lot of fun things you can have sensorially with this. Okay.
Yes, all right.
Now you've identified them, you're going to put them back in the big bowl. Now you're going to take those tweezers.
I know, this feels so good.
It does. It's very satisfying.
I know, isn't it? Even to me as an adult, think about how it would be for a child. All right, but I'm going to pick up my tweezers now.
Yes, and you're going to transfer, you're going to pinch a bean from the bowl with the tweezers and transfer it to one of the small bowls or onto the sorting tray or whatever you're using.
Yeah, I'm going to put this one in the little bowl.
Okay.
Now, in order, what you might do as an adult is to go ahead and put one of each kind of bean into each bowl ahead of time.
Sort of to help the child know that.
To help your child to be able to know like where to put things, right?
But your child, depending on the age of your child, they also might be able just to do this. This was something where, and we have a good question here about what do you do once you've given the lesson? Do you put it away? And so I think this is an example where maybe the first time you would show them more completely, and then if you are able to leave the work out, then they would already know how to do it for the next time, because you want to make it available for them to play.
That's right. There were a lot of times when we were in our kitchen a lot, cooking and, just having snack, exploring food, preparing snack. And I would actually set up a practical life work like this that we did. And I might keep it out for the whole week just on the counter, with my child standing up at their little, their little chair or stool. And then that was a place, obviously, where I would feel comfortable supervising. So you could put it on the shelf. You might notice that if you put it on a shelf and it kind of is out of sight, then your child maybe never goes back to it on their own. You can rev up interest by changing out what you have in here to sort. You can also change it up by taking away these little sauce bowls, maybe replacing it with a different kind of sorting tray.
Yep.
And so kind of offering a new experience with it.
Yep. But as long as the child is showing interest in it, leaving it out as long as it's safe for your home environment. Leave it out for the child to be able to go and play.
If it's safe for your child and you think that your child might want to come back to it, then do it. Another thing that you could do is, you could, after you're done with this activity, go ahead and make your bean soup or, cook them however you like. Although I have to say, these are probably going to cook at different speeds. If you cook all of these at once, these Corona beans are really huge.
Yes.
Maybe you can
You'll
cook
get some
smaller.
mushy beans and some firm beans.
That's right. But go ahead and cook whatever you have. Follow the directions for your dry bean soup, or just cook your beans and enjoy them, or put them away, whatever you like. And then you could replace. You could leave the setup, but replace them with something else to sort. And it might be that like the next time you're making snack, maybe you're making a fruit salad, and then ta-da, you have your little sorting set up already. You get it out. It's like available in your kitchen. You get it out. I used to just keep my little trays tucked into our cookie sheet area. I had a small one, a medium, and a large one right in the kitchen. Sometimes I also remember putting them on top of the microwave because that was kind of like a nice flat area where we could store some trays. And then I would store my equipment actually in the cabinet because, there are dishes, right? And so I might store it just in the cabinet, and then I would just very quickly get them out and set up a little tray set up with our whatever we're having for snack. And so maybe this time it's beans that you're sorting. You have that experience together. But maybe for dinner you have a variety of green vegetables. Like, let's say you have one of those bags of like mixed peas and corn and carrots.
Yep.
So maybe you just have 3 little bowls, but you incur like maybe this is the snack setup for one day. I probably would replace this with
something washable.
Something washable, yeah. Exactly. Like I was going to say, like a plastic tray probably is more appropriate if you're going to do it like with food, and probably not the tweezers. But instead, you could do a spoon or.
But now, why would you use those tweezers? I mean,
fingers.
as an adult, wouldn't you just use your hand?
You could.
But the tweezers, though, are important for the lesson, right?
They're one variation.
They're a variation. So why would you? Just so everybody, why tweezers? Like, why do you want them to use those tweezers?
Well, they're harder than using your fingers. So using your fingers is probably one of the very first things. And honestly, it's actually not easy to sort with the fingers either.
That's true. They are very tiny.
As I'm noticing, as I'm picking up beans, what I'm actually doing with my fingers is I'm reaching in, and then lots of beans are kind of falling in and out.
Like sifting them a little bit.
Yeah, kind of sifting them, and then I'm kind of rotating my fingers around to like find one bean. So fingers don't work like tweezers. I mean, I guess we could try, but really we're using these 3 fingers. We're using a thumb, an index finger, and the middle finger when we reach in there and try to sort. And as I pull them out, I'm kind of rolling them around in my hands and then emerging with one. And that is part of Montessori as an adult, is you're doing the work first to explore, and maybe you decide, I don't want to use tweezers. Actually, using fingers is quite interesting.
Or more satisfying somehow.
Maybe.
But but you're also...
this feels great with the fingers.
It does,
these large beans are real easy
really
to pick up, but these tiny beans are real slippery.
So this is good for developing the pincher grip, which is important for learning writing and reading.
Yep.
So that's definitely a part of this as well. Jessica says, commented, she says one of the things she likes about the constellation is that when she gets nervous that she doesn't have time to do more than constellation, she feels more confident because it covers so much, and that's right. That's like the beauty of these Montessori lessons.
So an extension to this that I think is listed in there, so you could use the sheet, the lab sheet that's provided, but one of my favorite ways to actually start integrate this in with math is after we've done some sorting. Let's say we've sorted these beans and we've emerged with this many, right? So maybe we kind of scaled down the number of beans that were in the bowl, right? So here we're going to take a look at the beans that are left, and you can arrange them any way you like. I'll put them like this. Ooh, fun. And then you get a strip of paper, and you can give your child you can give them a strip and something to write, and then you can record the number of beans right on your papers. And so maybe you can either do this with your child and kind of discover it, or you could do it ahead of time. And so if you wanted to do it ahead of time, you might write the numbers of the actual beans that you know are inside your bigger supply.
Yeah, so you would have just
here I've
already
got
counted out however many you have here.
2, 3,
15
4, 5.
beans.
We've got 5
and put those
here.
in the large bowl.
I've got 4 of these little brown beans. I've got 4 of these Corona beans and 1 of the garbanzo beans. And so if I were making them ahead of time, I would just take a little piece of paper and I would cut out little squares with numbers on them. This is a Montessori trick. Okay, some of the numbers you'll notice are the same. Maybe I have 2 kinds of beans that are 4 and 2 kinds of beans that have 1 in them. And then you would gather these numbers, and maybe they would be kind of just here in the middle in their own cup, or maybe they would be on the side. And then after you had sorted them, you can get out the numbers and lay them out. And we're just going to read them one at a time. Here's a 4. This one is 1. Here's 5. Here's 1. Here's 4. And I like to sort the numbers too. So I would put the ones together, because we've got 2 1s there, and we've got 2 4s and 1 5, and now we can really see what numbers we have. And then we can count the beans that are in here, and you can do that. I like to do it with my fingers and with my palm, and so I like to count into the palm, and as I'm picking it up, I count 1 red bean. And then, can we find the 1? It says 1. And we'll put the number 1 with the 1 red bean. And now we're going to count these. Hold my palm out, and maybe your child gets to hold their hands, and you help them by putting them in. But we count together. 1, 2, 3,
4,
5.
5.
5 pinto beans. Put those back in there.
4.
Let's find the number 5. This says 1. There's 4. Here's the number 5. This goes with these beans. 5 pinto beans. So this is a math extension that we talk about in the Montessori Foundations of Montessori Primary course. It's also in, it's an extension that's in our actual curriculum and the foundation card material. But it's also just a trick that you can learn. Anytime that you're doing a practical life activity, you can make it into a math activity based on your child's readiness. If they're ready, if they know their numbers already, then you can start writing the numbers down and putting.
I love how this can scale, right? So at the simplest level, it can be, let's observe the beans. And then it can go to, let's sort them. I'll help you, or you do it yourself. And then it can be, you find the right number that goes with the count. And then it could be, you count them and write the number.
Right.
And then it can be, let's add the beans.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then you can either with the beans, or you can get out your golden beads or your colored beads.
Yes. No, that is exactly right. And you don't have to, when you add them, you don't have to add them with the numbers.
No.
You can just say, I wonder how many white and garbanzo beans we have together. So here's my garbanzo bean, and here's my white beans, and we can count them now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we were to combine these beans together, there's 5. And you can see it visibly. So don't cook them into soup. Keep your beans and
keep some of the beans, not all of the beans.
Keep some of the
Got to eat some of those beans.
Keep some of the most interesting beans and use them for math. I mean, they're great, actually really great manipulatives, especially if you're using nice big ones like these. Even little ones like these are fun too, but a little harder to pick up with the fingers. I like the bigger beans.
Like fava beans, lima beans, these cassava beans. Yeah. If you can find a set, a 15 bean soup pack or something like that, they'll sometimes have a few larger beans and some smaller beans.
Yeah, a variety.
Hello, testing.
Testing. I bet you can
We're
hear
back.
us now.
Okay. We're back.
We're
It's going to
back.
take a second for you guys to catch up because you're a little behind
Oh, okay.
from live, but we are back. Okay. Wow. I wanted to show some pictures from the community.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people have been having fun. Thanks for hanging with us during our audio problem. We have some awesome community members, and they gave us permission to share.
Oh.
And blah blah blah. Thank you for sharing, telling us about this audio. Yeah, so we had a couple of folks who were willing to share their activities. So we have one up here at the top. You can see this extension.
Ooh, I love it.
Yes, isn't that cool? So what they've done with her kids are taking the beans and then matching them to the color tablets.
Beautiful.
And I think that's a really fun way to extend. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then here in the middle, this is from Donna. You could see they have just kind of doing a traditional way, but they have a huge layout there. I love that they have 10 cups, and I think they're using like muffin tin or muffin wrappers or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then over here, Ritika has this a really nice display here. I like the way she's got the beans kind of just laid out on the side, and then those little metal cups. So there's
maybe easier to pick up with the fingers.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
No tweezers inside here.
Nope. That's true.
No, there's some really great stuff though. It's awesome to see our community in action, and I really do like that color extension. I think it's pretty neat. Yeah. Do you? This is a good time, I think, for a very special friend.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna do this officially.
Oh, all right.
Who's that coming?
Hello.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Rabbit. Oh, Rabbit. You were supposed to make an appearance last week, but what happened? Some kind of technical difficulties. Well, that's what we get for hiring non-union labor. Why are you here today? Are you here to make some sorting fun with us? No, not really. I just wanted to share an awesome joke. Oh, okay. What is that joke? Well, are you ready?
I'm ready.
What? Oh, I forgot. What bean goes best with peanut butter?
What bean goes best with peanut butter?
A jelly bean.
A jelly bean.
Yay. Well, that was great. Smooth recovery from our audio glitch, to be sure. If you are a fan of bad jokes, then you should join us because our life is filled with bad jokes if you are in our community. Our community is included in all of our plans. And if you'd like to join us, head over to childoftheredwoods.com and learn about those plans. We do more lives like this, special for the community. Plus, you would get the themes, and depending on where you're interested in joining, you get the foundational cards and other things. And if you have any questions, you can also reach us if you go to childoftheredwoods.com. We have a chat feature.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for today.
Well, no, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh.
You wanted it. You wish it was a wrap, but actually, no.
Oh, okay.
We have an important final segment. Uh-oh. Gosh.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. We're talking about growing vegetable soup.
Okay.
So this is one of the books that we're reading for this week. So every month, we select, well, you actually do the selecting, 10 to 20 books.
Actually, just 10.
Oh, it's just 10. So 10 books
Yep.
related to the theme. So, of course, this month is bounty. So you picked a variety of books related to bountiful things like farm. And for this week, we're reading Growing Vegetable Soup, which is a classic from 1987, I think. Now, we wanted to highlight these books that we're showing because literature and reading and having those resources available is such an important part. It's maybe the most important part of a really good homeschool experience. So why did you pick growing vegetable soup?
Well, this month we've been talking a whole lot about taking things from the farm to the table and what that process is like. And since Bounty's theme is all about produce and about the abundance of food that we eat in the world, we felt like it was important for children to really be able to learn where their food comes from.
Yep.
And this book actually does a really great job of that. It is simple. This is a classic by Lois Ehlert. I don't know if I can show it up here. We checked this out from our public library. But what I love about it is it doesn't over-examine the whole process. It shows out a very, very simple and clear sequence. In fact, and sequencing is one of the Montessori skills that we try to teach children during this age group. And so by reading this book, it's just like, it's a very, very simple text, simple language. There's a few things to talk about on every single page. And I just think it's a great introduction to like the farm to table discussion. There's a lot where you could go with this discussion as you're working through the book, even though the book itself is very simple.
Yeah, and I love the art in this book. I love its simple, kind of big colors. I don't know how the artist, she made this. I'm assuming she cut out the shapes and then collaged them together, kind of Eric Carle style, but I don't know that for sure. I also love that this is filled with text in context. So it has some basic, simple, nice, big lettering text at the top usually, and all the sprouts in this case. But then throughout, you could see all the different pieces are identified. So this says set of onions. This says pepper. So
Peat moss pot.
Yep, peat moss pot. So it's a kind of like an I Spy book in a sense of like looking for the words and then reading them in the context. And like I said, just the art itself is really fun. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is very inspiring. And as a parent, when I look at this and I'm thinking, how do I integrate this into my homeschool?
Yes.
What I immediately want to do is go get some brown construction paper and go layer on, cut out some of these shapes. And what I probably would do is take one of these displays and then try to just, not copy it exactly, but use it for inspiration. And so I might think, okay, you know what? I'm not that great of, thinking about what I want to put on the paper, to collage. So I'm just going to kind of copy some of these pieces.
Yeah.
And so I would probably, personally, that's how I do art with kids. I would get out a red construction paper and I would kind of just like draw out some of the shapes and then glue them onto the green background, because just to kind of mimic the art style that Lois Ehlert has.
Yeah, and I think,
on here.
of course, different ages it'll appeal in different ways. But, for me, I think this is interesting as an adult because, this approach that we're emphasizing is really about like the child and the adult learning together. So looking at the way this gloved hand is made, I love, if you were to take these individual pieces, this shape and this darker purple shape and these individual, and you just lay them out, it wouldn't look like a hand.
No.
But the way it's collaged together, constructed together, it makes a hand. And I think that could be really, really cool. And actually, you find...
It is. That part is actually intimidating to me.
It is, yeah. But it also is... I don't know that it's... So I'm going to say that I bet it's less intimidating to children because when you think about like the geometric shapes and the other things that we use with children, some of those activities are about doing this very thing, about taking
that's true.
different shapes and things and putting them together to make something different.
Now, this is something that I can easily get behind as a parent.
Okay.
Is, the idea that you might have a light green up here. I think I could reproduce the sun pretty easily and just like have fun cutting out different leaf shapes with my kid. maybe even looking for leaf shapes in our yard, and then maybe tracing around them or drawing a similar shape, just to lay on there as a collage activity.
And like you said, the other thing that's great about this book is that it takes you through the whole sequence. At the end, they make the soup, and then the joke is like, we'll have it again next year because it takes a whole year to grow the soup.
I'm going to flip to that.
Yeah,
and wash the veggies.
And what I love about this is that it is so, like, the majority of the book is about actually the growing, the production of the vegetables, the planting, the tending, the harvesting, and only a very little bit is about the cooking. And I think that is magical because we often in the modern world are so disconnected from how our food is produced. I think that it's really great that this book shows this, like, actually it's a long tale of things that happen before you get to eat that vegetable soup. There are all these things that happen, this, like, that the plant had to grow and the people that had to help it before you get to the soup itself. I love that sense, and that I think that sense of time could be really exciting for a child who's kind of starting to become aware of the passage of time, like around 5 or 6, and thinking about it, especially as you're kind of moving into the time of the first grade lesson and you're starting about cosmic time, and having them think about, like, oh, I can understand how long it took to make the soup. Now imagine how long it took to grow the vegetables.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a beautiful book. It is one of the books that we have recommended for our theme of bounty.
Yeah, so we have a couple of last comments here.
Sure.
Yep, says, somebody is here for the joke. Well, I hope you weren't disappointed this time. Rabbit, did you know you're the star of the show? Of course I am. You're going to give him a big ego, along with those big ears. Let's see. Jessica says she just updated her setup in a way that she thinks would be better for a 2-year-old. Great. Following the child and thinking about the way you would organize. It also said the power hour jokes and the overall fun vibe, along with the wisdom imparted, are why you went with our curriculum. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Your membership makes it possible for us to do our work. Read it to my kids last night and appreciate that everything is labeled. The illustrations, the colors are perfect, and it would be fun with felt cutouts.
Oh, yes, it would.
On the wall in my kids' play area. Yeah, exactly. I just really like this art style.
I know.
And so it's kind of inspiring me to think maybe we could do something like that for one of our covers for this year. Maybe. What do we have? Stellar's coming up in November. We have Cave in next month. No. We have, what is next month? It's not. Is it Cave?
Yeah, it's
Cave is next month, and then we have Stellar. Yeah. So Pirouette, and then Pirouette in January. So maybe Pirouette will have this kind of a style. Well, anyway, if you want to get your hands on those upcoming covers and the good stuff inside, we would love to have you, just like Jessica, join us over at Child of the Redwoods. We do try to have a lot of fun. That is our kind of emphasis, I would say, is to make joy in the world with learning and family. So come on over. You can join us at childoftheredwoods.com and learn about us. You can email us at hello@childoftheredwoods.com if you want more information. And we will be back next week.
Yep, we'll be back next week.
I hope so, with fewer technical difficulties.
Cross our fingers.
But plenty of corny jokes. Don't worry, the corny jokes will always be here for you. All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.